There's already a video titled Senator Kent Conrad, Democrat from North Dakota, Ethics in the 5.6 trillion surplus, so many of the points in that video will not be repeated here. But here's the question in that video. Chairman Conrad, is your intentional misrepresentation of material facts associated with the 2001 CBO projection a violation of public trust? But the purpose of this video is to look at what other politicians in North Dakota might be saying about the 5.6 trillion surplus, because deception seldom happens in a vacuum. If you've never been to North Dakota, it's a beautiful place, and here's a picture of the Badlands. And the other senator is Senator Dorgan, a Democrat from North Dakota. Here are Senator Dorgan's positions on the 5.6 trillion projected budget surplus. Senator Dorgan on February 17, 2001 said, "The President's plan assumes we will have budget surpluses for the next 10 years. I hope that is the case, but with the current slowdown in our economy, we ought to be cautious. Economic forecasts are no more reliable than weather forecasts." And then on February 12, 2007, Senator Dorgan, the economic projections in 2001 showed the U.S. would have a 5.6 trillion surplus in the coming decade. 2007 is a complete contradiction to 2001. In 2001, economic forecasts are no more reliable than weather forecasts, and in 2007, the economic projections in 2001 showed the U.S. would have a 5.6 trillion surplus. And of course, Senator Conrad in 2007 said there was nothing certain about the surplus, but in 2008, he says Bush inherited a record 5.6 trillion surplus. So as suspected, the two senators from North Dakota are in unison on their approach to this 5.6 trillion surplus projection. However, the interesting discovery follows. On May 22, 2003, Senator Senator Dorgan, chairman of the Democratic Policy Committee, issued the following statement. The release said, "The 5.6 trillion 10-year surplus that President Bush inherited is now a deficit of more than 2 trillion for a total fiscal reversal of well over 7 trillion. This statement is 27 months after Senator Dorgan said that economic forecasts were no more reliable than weather forecasts." And this is the earliest reference I have found using the phrase Bush inherited a 5.6 trillion surplus. So what is the Democratic Policy Committee? The Democratic Policy Committee has served Senate Democrats by providing research and legislative support, developing policy proposals, publishing reports on important legislation and policy issues. It was established in 1947. So the committee that serves Democrats by providing research and legislation support coined the phrase the 5.6 trillion 10-year surplus that Bush inherited. And obviously the phrase is void of all cautionary statements associated with the uncertainty of a budget projection. So to answer the question on how did this deception begin, it appears that the Democratic Policy Committee in May of 2003 may be the place to look. Here's the Code of Ethics for Government Service. I will highlight 3 of the 10. Number 1, put loyalty to the highest moral principles and to country above loyalty to government persons, party, or department. 9, expose corruption wherever discovered. And 10, uphold these principles ever conscious that public office is a public trust. Here is a conclusion from the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. It says projections have greater potential for deception than historical data. This is from the AICPA Audit and Accounting Guide. More details are in the Conrad video. Also in the Conrad video is an explanation on how the 1933 Securities Act identifies the tactic of using projections for deceptive purposes. Moving to the Congressional Budget Office's the Budget and Economic Outlook fiscal years 2002 to 2011, what did the CBO say in the January 2001 report? In the 11 pages of uncertainties. The CBO stated, as a result, actual budgetary outcomes will almost certainly differ from the CBO's 5.6 trillion baseline projection. The CBO then states, in view of those uncertainties, the outlook for the budget can best be described not as a single row of numbers, but as a fan of probabilities. Continuing, Moreover, projections that are quite different from the baseline also have a significant probability of coming to pass. Addressing all the uncertainties, the CBO says Figure 5.1 is intentionally somewhat fuzzy because the uncertainties are themselves estimates. And here is Figure 5.1 showing the wide range of probabilities included in the report. The 2001 CBO report projecting a 5.6 trillion confirms Senator Dorgan's statement that economic forecasts are no more reliable than weather forecasts. And from the outlays section, the CBO was also clear. The baseline 5.6 trillion projection is not a prediction of future outcomes. Black's Law Dictionary, the third pocket edition, will be used for legal definitions. We see misrepresentation, the act of making a false or misleading assertion about something, usually with the intent to deceive. The assertion so made, an assertion that does not accord with the facts. Implied intent, a person's state of mind that can be inferred from speech or conduct or from language to which the person is party. In 27 months, Senator Dorgan goes from economic forecasts are no more reliable than weather forecasts to Democratic Policy Committee Chairman Dorgan issuing a statement saying the 5.6 trillion 10-year surplus that President Bush inherited is now a deficit. Based on the contents of the 2001 CBO report and Senator Dorgan's 2001 statement that economic forecasts are no more reliable than weather forecasts, Senator Dorgan has intentionally misrepresented the 2001 CBO report in 2003 by stating President Bush inherited a 5.6 trillion budget surplus, and the misrepresentation continued in 2007 with the economic projections in 2001 showed the U.S. would have a 5.6 trillion surplus in the coming decade. The 2001 CBO report did not show the U.S. would have a surplus in the coming decade. According to Black's Law Dictionary, fraud, a misrepresentation made recklessly without belief in its truth to induce a person to act. Is Chairman Dorgan trying to induce Americans to act by voting for Democrats using a misrepresentation? Democratic Policy Chairman Dorgan, is your intentional misrepresentation of material facts associated with the 2001 CBO projection a violation of public trust? Public office is a public trust.